because I'm not an artist, so I get to appreciate their talent. For me, the joy I get from being able to contribute to someone's success is what drives me. So even if I wasn't doing the art, I would be looking for ways in which, like, the gift that I have, how can I use it to help you amplify your gift? And if I can help contribute to someone's success, then I want to be a part of that.
Right. What does it take to build a platform that not only showcases art, but transforms the lives of artists and communities? Today's guest left the structured world of accounting to champion African artists on the global stage. She continues to empower young African creators and shows what's possible for women and men in the arts. It's a story of grit, of courage, of creativity. Women Leaders Unscripted today with Adenrele Sonariwo. What do you know about art and how it affects us, inspires us, changes us, motivates us? I have a leading lady today who will share more about how we think about art as a business, as a passion, as purpose, and as a global connecting tool. I have the very incredible Adenrele Sonariwo today on Women Leaders Unscripted. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for existing. Thank you for existing. No, but seriously, thank you for existing. You're doing so, you know how we don't know how people, so I think about you and like the iPhone. We didn't know that we needed the iPhone until.
That's very kind.
Until we had it. And like what you do, and you tell us more, is it's like, oh, do we really need to look at art in that way or see it in like how it connects us? But then you came and you're like, yes, absolutely. So, accounting, art. How did those worlds converge?
When I think about accounting, like I don't even remember that was a career for me.
Really, why not?
Because it's such a very long time ago.
Right.
I started obviously in the accounting field, but I think it's obviously played a role in how I run a business today. But I always say that I grew up around culture. So growing up, I grew up in Shagamu in Ogun State. And I was surrounded by culture like on a day-to-day basis. But it's interesting because when I have this conversation with my brother, it's like we grew up in the same environment, but he didn't see the things that I saw when I was growing up.
Right.
And so culture has always been a part of me. And even in accounting, like when I would go, I used to work in audit. And I think that, think about a space like, for instance, even in government, and a government leader goes to visit another government leader. What are some of the non-business or non-political things they would do while they're visiting, right? It'll be something softer, like, going to a museum or, even if they had the museum within the space or, so it would be more creative things, right? And so for me, I was still interested in those things while I was in accounting. So I would go to a new city and I would want to like explore like what the art space was like or what the institutions look like.
Right.
And there was still that need for me. So automatically when I came back to Nigeria, I wasn't interested in doing the audit or accounting thing anymore. But I was working within the creative sector, doing the business side of things.
Of things.
Yeah,
Right.
and that's how it really started. I would go to a lot of artist studios, like young artists. I would go to exhibitions, and I wasn't sort of seeing myself. So it was maybe a selfish approach initially. Like I wasn't seeing myself reflected within that space. How you would see music or fashion or film. There was this like energy that was in the air like 10 years ago, that I wasn't seeing within the art space. And that's how we really started. So from doing like the pop-up exhibitions to then realizing that, we needed a much more permanent space.
Right.
And it's built from there. We celebrated 10 years in February, so thank you. Thank
I
you.
want to talk about culture because we see, different people, culture means different things to different people. When some people it's the clothes, some people it's the art, some people it's the people, some people it's a mix of both. But you speak very specifically about growing up in culture shape. It shaped like how you saw the world. What particular aspects? And like growing up in Shagamu, I didn't live there, but my dad used to play golf in the
Wapco, probably, yeah.
And so we used to go to Shagamu like every other weekend. And so I remember like we'll go in his Volvo, we'll buy like snail on the road, and like I'll go. So Shagamu has this sort of like, I don't want historic, probably is maybe not the right word, but it had. I don't know about now. A charm that
I don't know about now too.
it had a charm that Lagos didn't, and it had an earthiness that Lagos is soulless in many ways. Shagamu wasn't like that.
Right.
So what aspects of that culture stayed with you? And I want to understand. I want to see that world through your eyes as a child.
Right. So I did go to school in Lagos as well. So I have that balance. But Shagamu, because my dad was a traditional ruler, so he lived in Shagamu.
Right.
And so we had to constantly like endure a lot of the things. But when I think about growing up, it's like, there was all this like chieftaincy titles or like performances or like parties. I think about the way people party now to like 4 or 5 a.m. Like those things were happening back then. Like, we didn't just sitting down, gisting. They'll be bringing out like fresh fish and drinks, and they're having it. This was our parents back then. They were like partying up to like wee hours in the morning. So it's really not new that. It's not new. The food, my favorite food is eberepo. It's something I ate.
I knew it.
Yeah, I grew up eating that. Almost every week at some point would have it hot. Nice. So it's the food, it's the people. It's the performances, I grew up around that, and that sort of stayed with me over time.
Did you feel, because again, even though you were doing like the business side of the creative space, in many ways, yes, there were galleries, but we didn't, how do I put this? We didn't think of galleries as something to be in. We used to think about galleries as, okay, there are some paintings there from some artists you don't even know, and hey, maybe they are dead though. Hey, child. But it wasn't this sort of like, it can live in living and breathing real time contemporary. We didn't think about it like that. But then Rele Gallery came, and suddenly art was cool for young people. And I'm just like, okay, this is a quiet revolution. What were your intentions when you were starting out? Did you feel like, okay, I'm going to transform this space. I'm gonna be the Miranda Priestley of art. I'm gonna vogue it up.
Absolutely not.
Right.
Absolutely not. I think there was two things that were important to me. It was, we wanted to sort of democratize the way you think about art, and also to make it accessible to people.
Right.
And so for me, I was seeing that a lot of young people weren't being reflected in this space. It's like, how do I give you, really it's called home, right? It means home. And so it's like going home. So it's like, how do I create a space that feels like home, And so the young artists that we were showing they were doing interesting work, but there was no way for them to show that work. And also rethinking the way you think about African art, right? Because when I was going around looking at art, like it looks a specific way. It was like the modern child. It was very traditional. Yeah, you think about it in that sense, right? But these are artists that were doing things differently, even with fashion. You see what was going on with fashion and music and all that, but there were artists that were thinking in that same way. And so it's like, how do we bring them into this space? So I think we really have to credit the young people for making it cool for us to be able to get the kind of attention that we did. Like, I remember we used to have like lines like going down the street. We were Military Street back then,
I remember
not so much now. But then, yes, it was cool for people to like really like just engage. And I think it was that sort of making you feel safe, and you come in and there's not like you're not intimidated by what you're seeing in the on the walls. You can connect with it. You can have conversations, and for me, the team. It's very important for my team to also make people feel comfortable.
Right.
So when you walk into the space, there's some galleries you go to abroad where nobody says anything to you. Or,
and you're just like, oh, do I belong here?
No, it's very important for us. We say hi, welcome. Let me know if you have any questions. So just little things like that, I think helped.
And so I want to talk a little bit about, again, most Nigerian parents, you don't go to them, or Nigerians, period, and say, oh, you know what, I'm starting an art gallery. It's like, kilo, everything okay. Like, people are going to want to know, like, what's going on. And so what were the reactions, especially you again, accounting is so hardcore, at least the way that we think about it. What were the sort of reactions from those closest to you when you said, hey, like, this is what I'm going to do and I'm going to do it?
To be honest, I don't think I would be doing what I was doing if I didn't have that sort of support that I had. So not support in the sense that they understood what I was doing per se, but just support in like believing in like, okay, if you think that this is what you want to do, then 100% we're behind you. And I say that even with my parents, like my dad before he passed didn't understand like what I was doing, but he'll be present, like he'll come for the exhibitions. He would show up, so the support was like, and I had a roof over my head, like, so those things allow you to be able to do certain things when you have that kind of comfort, right? So I don't take that for granted at all, that they could support me in other ways, not necessarily within the field of what I was doing. And then my friends, obviously, eventually, like everybody sort of, and it's been 10 years, so it's kind of like there's something that you're doing that is working.
That's right.
So we're going to keep supporting. And as much as possible, I try to like explain, because we also have like a foundation that I just came back from Ekiti like a couple of days ago, where we really like support young artists. They get that, they understand what that looks like. So they might not really understand the day to day, but there's that support, and there's that like, we're rooting for you, and they see the work. They appreciate all that.
And as someone who is a creative, at least I assume
I don't consider myself
a creative. That's like a huge assumption. What would you? I hate, and we all say this. I hate tags and boxes, but I would just assume someone who is interested in art must be creative. So how would you describe yourself?
I think you have to have the right balance, because I'm also a business person, right? I find value for the artist within what we're doing. And so a lot of creative people have trouble sort of balancing that, the business aspect. But because I also have that business background, it's very, I want to say it's easy, but I'm able to balance it. I think in the beginning, like I was very like, okay, creative brings an idea. I'm like, okay. So I'm kind of like that person that has to like tear me down and say like, how do we find the right balance? I do have ideas, I wake up with ideas and I will share. But ultimately, we try to, it's the vision of the artist that we really try to convey. We don't try to control that creative aspect.
Right.
Yeah.
And as someone who works with artists, that support, do you find that it's important to them to have, and I'm saying them as though I think I'm a little creative, but do you find that, what does that do to them to have someone who understands them from like a creative perspective, but also like, okay, here's how we're going to monetize this? Because what we see and like what we've experienced is that most artists don't really care. They're just like, oh, I'm so passionate about this, I want to create, but
you
it's
have
like,
to eat.
you have to eat.
Yeah.
So how does that, and you are able to see like both sides of the divide, how does that how do they respond to that sort of like, okay, at least she gets us and we're going to try and make money?
I think it's every artist's dream, right? Or it should be, that you can really concentrate on your art and have somebody that's thinking about that other aspect for you. And we've done that like over the last 10 years, really just trying to ensure that we can support them in other, at some point, like it's only recent, at some point they're like their therapist, they're like doing so many things, like their mom, there's, you also have to think about what if, like family, for instance, like things that go on within their space that could affect the creative process. So we juggle so many different roles, but I'm not complaining.
I was going to say, is it exhausting?
It could be. Right. It could be. But I think I found the right balance. Rest, recovery is very important. We just spent 2 weeks with over 40 people in a room. Wow. I think we had 19 artists and then the rest of the team and the facilitators and stuff like that. And so you're required to be present, for every single day. But then the good part is that you do that and then you can take a break and come back. So I think once you can schedule in like rest, it helps.
And so I want to talk about like collecting art. Most people think, okay, I can just go to Lekki Market now and then put this and then frame it. And okay, that looks like a nice sculpture and I'll just put it at the corner. Is there an art to art?
Absolutely. Right. I mean, there's being a craftsman, so being skilled at something.
Right.
But I think it's the thinking, it's the mind that elevates it a bit further.
I love that. It's the mind that elevates it a bit further. I need to have that on t-shirt. Yeah.
Because an artist's mind is amazing. They come up with so many different ideas, and how are they able to sort of bring that idea to life? I think that's what sets it apart, right? Because which is also what we do within our just coming back. It's like we spend a lot of time like trying to get through to the mind, like how are you thinking? What are the things that allow you to think properly? Right. What are some of the ideas you want to share with the world? Right. So those kind of things is what we spend time really. Yeah.
So there's like I don't want to say we see sort of like the free flowy, but there's also like there's a structure to that. Now, for people who say I want to own and collect art, but I don't know where to start and how to do it. Also, I don't have money. What would you say to those people?
I mean, if you don't know where to start in terms of collecting, I always say just go to as many exhibitions as possible. And Instagram is also a way to look at exhibitions. You can just spend time scrolling, and at some point something would hit you, right? And that's the beginning of what you start to learn interests you. Right. And the more you see art, the more you start to understand what is interesting to you. Because what I like is different from what you would like, for instance, right? So that's a good way to start. I think don't be influenced by what is in or what is popular or what people are saying is cool. Like just make sure that there's a personal conviction in what you're saying and connecting with. I think that's the first thing. And as far as money, like, I can afford it. No, not necessarily, because even with what we do currently, like the artists that we work with, very young artists, like 100K naira, not dollars, 150,000. They're young artists, and they're young people that also beginners that want to be a part of that experience. So that sort of brings them in as well. But yeah, I do acknowledge that there are artworks that are very, very expensive, but you would always find something that is a bit, and it's also a good opportunity to grow with a young artist. So maybe if you're complaining that it's expensive, maybe don't like look at the really big artists and just focus on like there's so many young artists that you can support.
There's a scene that Hollywood has bastardized, and it's the scene where there's an art piece or installation, and then people are staring and they're saying, and it just breathes, and the fine lines, and it's all of these things that to normal people sounds like gibberish. It's just like and then maybe you go and look at it, or like the famous banana. So it's just like, why was this auction? Like, I can't understand. How do you learn how to do that, or how to I guess maybe the word is translate, or it doesn't make sense what they do when they do that thing that they
I think that I can put a banana here, for instance, and it's about the intention. Like I can put the banana here and it's just something that anybody can grab and
Right.
eat. And I can put it on the wall and say, this is art, and
Right.
make meaning out of it.
Right.
Just like, what is the artist's intention, right? What is the
Right.
artist intending to do?
Right.
And sometimes a good starting point for when you see art like that is, if you can't sort of decipher it yourself, is to figure out what the artist's intention is. And you can really easily see that through like a artist statement or like a exhibition statement, which you will find when you first of all walk into a gallery. The good part is that I always say that art is not one thing. So whatever, even if the artist had an intention, you can come in and interpret it a certain way, right? But if you're in that first instance confused, that's a good way to start, to see, okay, what was the art? Do I agree with it? Do I not agree with it? That's a conversation for, to keep going, you can continue that conversation. But people connect with art differently. And so what that banana on the wall can mean for me is different from what it can mean from you, right? But I think that's the beauty of art. It's always engaging. It's always something to talk about.
I want to talk about global reach. You've had exhibitions in New York, London, LA. In fact, I think I was in the Bay Area and I was just like, oh my God, I want to go because I couldn't. And again, you're almost like mainstreaming what has always been like niche. And I love that. Like I don't want to use the word breaking barriers, but you are, because you're like, okay, we are here and proudly Nigerian, but like I'm making this global. Talk to me a little bit about that journey and how you set your sights on the global market, why, and what have been like the reactions to it.
Yeah, I think great question. When I started off thinking, we wanted to go international, it was really about the artists. Like a lot of the things that we do is responding to the artists that we work with. And because I see a lot of art, and I'm like, we do have a lot of talented people here on the continent and just really diverse and rich stories that I think needs to be exported out, right? So yes, we do have the space locally that we can show it, but how do we give them a more global audience? And so that was initially why the first location in LA. And it shifts perception of what you think should be Nigerian or African. And also, it wasn't just representing Nigerian art for me. It was also thinking about the continent as a whole. When you think about the economy, for instance, the largest economies, you say Nigeria or you say South Africa, right? But there's so many other African countries within this canon, right? That our stories are just as important. And so I think of myself as a gallery owner and I say, okay, you can't have all those sort of smaller countries like a Zambia or Botswana. They really may not be able to own a gallery in LA, but how can I, as an African woman, bring their stories into fore? So that was very important for me as well, like bring in some of those stories and so we have artists from Botswana, from Zambia, from Harare, within our programming. And those stories are just as important, in my opinion. So it's like, for me, shifting perception, giving the artist a voice, to be able to tell the stories in an authentic way, not diluted, very raw and pure. And that's what really the art spaces allow us to do.
I've lived in the US for the last 6 years. And I was at a conference just a few days before I came in, and someone said, "Oh, you're from Africa." And I tried to look around, like, what is giving
about
me,
me?
like, And I was wearing a tag, and I was like, I'm Nigerian, which is an African continent. And he repeated again, "Oh, you're African." So I said, "I'm Nigerian." Then he goes, "Oh, it's the country where there are two tribes, the Igbos and the Yorubas." So I paused because I was just like, Holy Spirit, get me together. And I couldn't believe that he was asking me this question. And so I want to try and understand, like, have you faced such sort of like any of these biases, or maybe bias is not the word, but like misconceptions people have about the African continent or about art? Or somebody told me again, he said, "Oh, you're from Africa." Then he was doing like this. I was like, well, he was like, lion, elephant. And I was just like, what the hell? So, I'd love to hear, because, again, like how people think about Africa is like the mask and zebra. And I'm like, come on. So how do you deal with those misconceptions?
I mean, yeah. I think that part of the mission really is to show that Africa is not a monolith, and that there's sort of different aspects of it. And yeah, there are places where you can enjoy the lions and the gorillas, and there's a country like Nigeria where we don't have that,
Yeah.
But yes, I think initially when I started in LA, like, when one of the press people that had come, was like trying to get me to explain that there is something like contemporary African art, and I'm looking at him like, what do you mean? Like, this is like, I'm not doing anything new here. And it's like, no, there are people that actually think that when they think about African art, they think about the artifacts and the ancient things, and like, this is a good opportunity for you to be able to. So I said, you know what, if it's going to help someone get more understanding of what we're doing, no problem, So we do get a lot of that.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, and then when we go to the fairs as well, when you think about Lagos and Nigeria and just the bad, rep that we get, I always, say that we want to tell a very balanced story, that yes, Nigeria does have its problems, or the continent does have its problems, but there's also beauty out of it.
Yeah.
And even in the stories and the art that we share, there's always that dichotomy in that the artist might be talking about an issue, a pressing issue, but the work is beautiful and the colors, make it bright, So there's that it's very nuanced in a sense.
And do those, still speaking about those misconceptions, do they annoy you, or are you sort of like, oh well, I exist in the world, let's keep moving?
I think that's giving too much energy to it.
I love that. Francesca, take notes.
If I say it annoys me, no, absolutely not. Okay. I like to preserve my peace and my space. Like, I just don't feel like it's worth it
getting riled up over. I need to take notes, because I'm always like,
no.
Okay.
No.
So let's talk about collaborations. You've collaborated with Style House Files, and you've done something around like fabrics, like the history of it and all of that. Why is that important to do?
I won't take credit for the kind of collaboration we would do. It's like we've done technology, we've done health, we've done things like that. And it's people approaching us to say we want to collaborate. And I always say that I can collaborate with anything. Give me anything and I would be able to create a link within the art space. So when they do come, so it's not like we go out looking for it.
Right.
But when they do come to us, like, we're very happy to like be able to, if the arts can help amplify a message. We did some work with the Gates Foundation about 2 years ago within, the power of arts within the health sector. And we're able to bring artists together to show, so they did really interesting installations around like mosquitoes and just congestions, things like that. If we're able to create that collaboration to amplify a certain cause, then absolutely, yes.
Right. Do you have any target? I know, like, obviously Nigeria is like an important market, but like within Africa, and you've mentioned some other parts. Do you have targets? So for example, Francophone Africa is sometimes missing from like the conversations like around art, and I'd just like to hear your thoughts on sort of having a more integrated approach with countries that people wouldn't ordinarily. So when people think about art, they're like Nigeria, Ghana, they think about like and maybe Senegal on some level. But what other countries are sort of like interesting places or areas to look at too?
Cameroon, absolutely. Like we have an artist that we work with, love his work so much. We've been working with him for the last 3 years. Côte d'Ivoire as well is a good country. And beyond that, my personal goal is to visit as many more African countries as I can. So next week I'm going to Botswana. Been to South Africa already, but have some work to do there. There's also plans to do Freetown, Uganda. There's just a lot for me as a
Right.
personal mission,
Right.
to be able to do stuff like that.
Right.
And as much as I can, funding on my side, it's like I want to be able to go to many more of those
Many
countries. Yeah.
And what would you say what inspires you about the work that you do?
Honestly, it's the artists. Because I'm not an artist, so I get to appreciate their talent. And day, I realize that for me, the joy I get from being able to contribute to someone's success is what drives me. So even if I wasn't doing the arts, I would be looking for ways in which, like, the gift that I have, how can I use it to help you amplify your gift? And so I just feel very blessed and grateful that they can put their careers in my hands and say, I trust you to be able to, do what you do. And so seeing very good art, very thoughtful art, that is touching, that is connecting, is what inspires me to keep going.
That's powerful. And as you say that, I think about, and it's interesting when you say, at the beginning of our conversation, where we talk about, how people think art, African art is like, the mother and the child.
Yeah.
And we had a painting when we're growing up, I think about it now, of 3 women. They all had like
Calabash
on their heads.
Yes.
And they were all backing babies.
Oh, yes.
And I think about it now and I'm like, now if I saw something like that, I wouldn't buy it, because I'm like, this is stereotypes. Like, I would not do this. This is not. But like growing up, I didn't question it that deeply. And so like, I guess like my question is, how do we encourage people to sort of think about art more? And I don't want to go too deep or too layered, because I have the habit of doing that. But like, how do we encourage people to look at art as a medium beyond, it just looks fine on the wall, but as something that can evoke like deeper thought or deeper emotion or deeper intentionality?
Absolutely. I think it's the artist's responsibility.
Right.
And the way you can do that is, with a unique medium, or with a, a unique form of storytelling. Because when I think about movies and stuff like that, most of the movies that we're watching, like, they're not like new. Do you get what I mean? But it's just like now it's told in a different way. Now there are certain like arcs that are interesting, and they bring a different flair to it. And I think as artists, you need to think in that same way. As you're speaking, I was thinking about an artist we're working with just a couple of weeks ago, when he's interested in like the vendors on the street, like those the hawkers and things like that, right? And he was thinking about it in terms of like social justice,
right?
But when I see those things, and you see them a lot on the streets, you don't think in that way. It's just like, this market's art or whatever. But I'm like, now as an artist, like, you're getting us to think about these things differently. But you also have to think about how you're depicting that on the canvas, and how do you capture people's attention, and what are some of the ways that you're gonna, maybe if you wanted to add humor to it or add some level of seriousness, like you have to think deeply about that. How do I capture my audience? And so I think that's the artist's responsibility, and it could take years and years of practice to do that.
I know you've talked about going into new markets, traveling more extensively across Africa. But what are the next frontiers for Rele Gallery? What are some of the things that you're like, okay, and I'm not a 5-year, 10-year plan person, so if it's not your jam, be like, girl. But what are what should people sort of like look forward to or like expect? And I know that's pressure, but no pressure.
What is most important for us is to ensure that we're sustainable. Like, we want to continue to be within the space, and we want to continue to tell the stories, right? So that's first and foremost on my mind. Like, we're already in 3 locations. We're not trying to like be all over the place. We do have some fairs coming up that we want to continue to participate in. Very important for us to do great presentations within those spaces. Our foundation is also very important. Like, how do we get more African voices involved in that? So that's my own primary responsibility.
Right.
And then you also cannot give from a cup that is empty.
That is
So
empty.
I am doing a PhD program starting in the fall. So that allows me, thank you, that allows me to be able to come back and be able to give to my team in a way that, that is impactful.
Right.
Yeah.
Are you afraid about doing I mean, I've heard interesting things about the PhD journey and like how it's like it can be like intense. Maybe afraid is not the word. Maybe are you looking forward to it? Like, is that
I don't think there's anything more intense than running 3 international
well,
locations.
yeah.
And so
shame.
I acknowledge that it might be, but I also think that a lot of people enter it without the real world experience. And so having done this for the last 10, 15 years, I welcome the challenge because I know that it's important. It's a level of importance for what I'm doing. And so I'm not like nervous or scared. I'm just I'm excited for what that challenge is.
Right.
I don't know what it's gonna, because I still have to run my businesses alongside. So I worry about that, but I also am looking at the fact that when I'm done with it, like it's gonna be really good for what we're building.
Are there any women within the art space or sector, or even the creative industries that you admire, respect, are inspired by, look up to?
There's a lot of them.
Oh, okay.
Like Mama Nika here in Nigeria,
Yes.
so I love her so much.
Right.
She's a legend. Unapologetically her. I don't wish I was her, but I just like love how bold she is.
Yeah.
And I aspire to be bold, because even now I'm still like a bit reserved and a bit careful, but she just like goes.
Just goes out.
She goes all in, and I think that there's a lot to learn from, like, regardless of what your personality is like or whatever. Like, how can you be bold within that itself?
Yeah.
And then internationally, I have so many like gallery owners that I look. Some of them I don't even know personally, but I read up. One thing I love is reading people's autobiographies, or read interviews.
Right.
In my head, they're my mentors.
Right.
And so I learn a lot from those sort of people. Yeah.
Right. That's powerful. And just, as we wrap things up, what would you, and you sort of hinted at it, but what would you be doing if you weren't doing accounting before, or running Rele Gallery and like your other businesses?
I'll be singing. But God didn't bless me with a good voice, unfortunately.
that was fun. Right.
I wish, but
Right.
I like karaoke, and I always say that, like, there's a reason why God didn't bless me with a beautiful voice. I'll just be this diva, like, messing up the whole place.
Right.
But, if I wasn't doing this, maybe teaching.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like the difference, and I've seen it, like the difference between A and B, it's education. Education is very important. Exposure, and if I can help contribute to someone's success, then I want to be a part of that.
Right. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adenrele. Thank you for this conversation.
Thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure.
Thank you for, doing deeply important work. I know
Thank you.
sometimes you're just like, okay, there's work to do, but thank you for lighting up the world in a very thoughtful, creative, intentional way.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you for all the work you're doing as well.
Thank you. So you've learned about art. You've learned about how to collect. You've learned about how to preserve. You've learned about how to think about it in a way that stimulates you mentally, creatively, even spiritually. It was an amazing conversation with the incredible Adenrele Sonariwo. Check it out on our YouTube channel. Bye-bye.